BBC Radio Merseyside.
BBC Radio Merseyside news, Ian Judson reporting. There were renewed outbreaks of rioting in Toxteth last night. Gangs of youths stoned cars and hijacked milk floats from a nearby depot. Policemen armed with riot shields confronted the mobs in the Upper Parliament Street area and immediately found themselves under attack from petrol bombs and bricks. So far, several hundred policemen have been hurt, and property worth millions of pounds has either been stolen or set alight by rioters.
When news breaks suddenly, BBC Local Radio is on the spot, ready for action. The problems may be national, but their impact is local, and it's to the local BBC station that people turn first for news and then for the discussion of why things went wrong.
Mr. Speaker, it would seem that there's a total breakdown of law and order in this part of Liverpool, and I think there's a very serious risk of it beginning to spread. I wonder if the Home Affairs Secretary would consider declaring a state of emergency if, in fact, these problems do continue.
Not only in times of crisis, but through the daily business of Westminster, Local Radio's Parliamentary Unit links MPs with their constituencies through local broadcasts. And what listeners to every BBC station want most is fast, accurate local news.
Radio Lincolnshire News at 8 o'clock. This is Penny Buston. Lincolnshire Police are to look in detail at criticisms of police attitudes to the public, and particularly young people, made by a county clergyman. A senior officer has had a meeting with the Vicar of Ancaster, the Reverend Laurie Blanchard, who devoted his parish newsletter to the subject.
Radio Carlisle, I think.
The important one is the housing strategy one, which is this thing.
Well, we could do with another strong feet for the morning.
Yeah.
In every one of over 20 stations spread across England, the main centre of activity is the newsroom. From first thing every morning, radio journalists are gathering and checking the local news for station bulletins. And throughout the day, reporters move out to where the news is being made.
A couple of policemen being shot there.
Not just the hard news, but also the information services, weather forecasts, traffic reports. Each station is different because each reflects local priorities.
And for an update on the train situation, over to Southern Region and Arthur Hall. Good afternoon, Arthur.
Good afternoon, John. Well, we don't have too many problems for Medway town travellers this afternoon. Most services from London are running as scheduled.
Now the tide times for our Solent area. First, low water at Poole Bridge, which is at 14:50. High water at Bournemouth, 7:50, 9:40, 20 hours and 22:15. Christchurch entrance, 8:10 and 10 hours, 20:20 and 22:35.
You're listening to The Breakfast Show on BBC Radio Sheffield. Not too many problems on the road, just one or two things to bear in mind. There is still work going on the M1 between junctions.
Early morning in Lincolnshire means cornflakes, toast and the breakfast show.
BBC Radio Lincolnshire is your local radio station, bringing you more than 70 hours a week of programmes featuring what's going on in and around the county. News, information and entertainment 7 days a week on 94.9 stereo VHF and 219 metres medium wave. That's 1368 kilohertz. Local radio for Lincolnshire, from Lincolnshire.
To give full county coverage, the station can link up with small unmanned studios in other towns. This morning, the guest to be interviewed in Nick Brunger's programme has been asked to come into a studio 17 miles away. Studios like this widen the opportunities for people to broadcast their views, and local radio staff will do everything to help you. And you don't need to be experienced to feel at ease on the air.
Don Patterson here in the Sleaford studio.
Oh, good morning, Don. It's Nick Brunger from Radio Lincolnshire. You'd agreed to speak to us this morning. Jolly good. Are you sitting comfortably in the studio now?
Yes, thank you.
Smashing. Would you like to tell me just what you had for breakfast this morning? I can take a few words of level from your voice that way.
Oh, nothing very exotic. Cereals and cream, bread and marmalade and some cups of tea.
OK, Don, what's going to happen now is we're playing a record at the moment. When that record's finished, I'll come over to you and we'll begin to talk about this competition. OK?
Very good.
Right, if you'd like to hang on to the telephone then, this disc has got a few seconds left to run. We'll be talking on the air after that.
A programme from Lincoln Cathedral takes the station out of its studios and into the community. Today's live programme could be from a village green, a seaside resort or a factory, any place where the people of the county are at home or at work.
Ron, welcome to the programme. What's going on just below us here?
Well, we're taking all the parish stone out
and you'll see that we take the whole block right out and replace it by a new block. That's the best way to do it. Instead of patching up little patches in, we find that taking the whole block out, it's the easiest way and it's the best way.
Where's the stone actually come from?
We've got a quarry about a mile in the road, Lincoln limestone it is, or...
And that is Lincoln limestone?
Local stone.
Of course, the programme isn't just about the stonework. It'll go into all aspects of the cathedral, the life and work of all those people whose skills and dedication have given this great building its place in the community down through the ages. From preserving the old to building the new.
Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh will arrive in the county of Humberside at 10:15 this morning. Their arrival will mark the beginning of a very special day for Humberside, and you can be at the heart of events by staying tuned to Radio Humberside.
Making it possible for every listener to share in the excitement of a big national event like the Humber Bridge opening strains the resources of a station to the limit, with miles of ceremonial route for its reporters to cover and a technical challenge for the engineers.
And the effects mic, yeah. I'll just give you one case here again.
For the crowds, perhaps only a fleeting glimpse of the Queen, but Radio Humberside gives its listeners a ringside view of what the Queen herself will see.
I think the first thing she's going to see is lots and lots of members of the public remarkably close to everything. It's not, in fact, until you are here that you realise just how close the public are to the Queen. If I tell you, for instance, that where the toll booths are, where you pay your pound as you drive your car through, the public are immediately behind that. In front of that are going to be a group of disabled people, and Her Majesty will be coming around there, talking to them, meeting them, chatting to them after she has opened the bridge. Row of the men drawn up and passing behind the standard now. The military band still playing, as you can probably hear. We'll get to meet Her Majesty later in the day. Certainly they got a magnificent view. She's walking now down towards the centre of the plaza. Prince Philip coming out to greet her with the Lord Lieutenant.
Back in the operations room at base, it's the culmination of all the planning.
If the removal of frustration in travel is as vital as I believe, this area must be a land of opportunity. I have every confidence that there are many waiting to grasp it. It gives me great pleasure to unveil this plaque and declare the Humber Bridge open.
A spectacular salute from the Red Arrows, and now with the bridge officially open, the first person to cross it will be the Queen herself. But it's not the end of her visit. She'll spend the rest of the day meeting the people whose lives will be altered by their new bridge. And all day, Radio Humberside will be there too. Indeed, the coverage started months before. It included last night's celebratory fireworks, and it'll continue with local reactions and a concert tonight, with music specially commissioned by Radio Humberside. And just as the bridge links people on both sides of the river, so local radio itself brings all sides of the community closer together. A different station, and this one is holding an open day for all its listeners.
It's 10 o'clock, half an hour ago. The doors have been opened for you to come and have a look round your favourite local radio station, which, as I say, is BBC Radio Nottingham. You can come and see us, you can come and talk to us, and you can come and watch our live programmes.
As you can see now, what Fletch is doing is getting a disc on.
I want the title,
and he'll be playing it in
the composer,
very shortly.
And the number ring is Nottingham 41.
And once we've seen that, you'll have to move on because there's a big queue.
During the day, over 2,000 people came to see what the performers actually look like and how the programmes are made.
What we
do a programme from out there.
Absolutely.
And it's a chance for anyone to put their views to the chairman of the Advisory Council, which is made up of people from the station's listening area.
So get everybody telling us what East Midlands Airport does then.
That's right, and I think...
How you get there.
That's it. I think that would be interesting. Same as this is interesting to us today, to come and have a look, see how you work.
One special area of interest represented on some advisory councils is that of ethnic minorities.
BBC Radio Leicester के मिलन प्रोग्राम में आपका विजय शर्मा की ओर से स्वागत। मुझे उम्मीद है कि हमेशा की तरह से आप आज भी हमारा ये प्रोग्राम सुन रहे होंगे।
Vijay Sharma's program in Hindi Urdu gives Asian listeners an hour a week of advice, information and their own music. Meet Vindaloo on the Hoof at the Cumberland Show. County shows throughout the summer give stations a chance to join their audience in all the fun of the fair. And here at Radio Carlisle, they're meeting their listeners on their own ground, with an exhibition stand and programmes throughout the day from the stage.
Glasgow in Sochi Hall Street.
So we're stuck until Robert Walker's on.
Broadcasting under canvas can bring problems, but somehow they're always overcome.
Okay, drop line 2. Thanks very much.
But what's brought people here is the more serious business of the day. And in the cattle lines are some of the finest animals in the country. Radio Carlisle's farming listeners want to know more about these prize winners and hear the views of their breeders.
The beef offer, but she's milking very well. At the time the recorder was there before she...
The agricultural producer, Charles Guest, is collecting material for his programme later tonight.
Really very good, but our mother was a cow which didn't do very well at all for the first 3 calves, and then she finished up a £100,000 cow before she was finished.
It's amazing. Okay, thank
you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
You'll be on Cymru Farmer tonight, probably.
The Packmen are popular folk singers in the border area, and like many local musicians, they get an opportunity to broadcast on local radio. For young listeners to Radio Bristol, like many others, GCE O-levels can be a worry. Bristol uses rock music to sweeten the pill of exam advice.
I can see a lot of teachers throwing up their hands in anguish and saying that rock music and O-levels just don't mix.
I think they do. The programme will be very energetic, we hope, like rock music. And we hope that with, as I said, the music, it will get the children to listen. I'm sure if we played middle-of-the-road music or classical, we wouldn't get the audience.
And there's a direct phone line to our literature experts, so if there's anything about the forthcoming exams causing you sleepless nights, give the O-Level show a ring on Bristol 38942. Whatever you want to know, we're here with the answers.
Even if you pass your O-levels, you may end up without a job. And this is the biggest problem for the young people in Leicester, who get together every week for their own music and discussion programme. They broadcast it from a youth centre called the Wyvern. And all they need from the BBC are the technical facilities and some production advice. The programme subject this week, chosen by the group themselves, will be the Youth Opportunities Programme, or YOP. A tense moment for the young chairman as he prepares to go live on air.
You're in tune with your local radio station, BBC Radio Leicester. It's 5:45, time now for Live at the Wyvern with Mark Cannon.
Hello and welcome to Live from the Wyvern. At the end of the week on Radio Leicester, which concerned itself with youth unemployment, we home in on the issue from the viewpoint of those it directly affects and give them the opportunity to speak live from the Wyvern. John, you had a point to make.
Yeah, I think the YOP scheme is very important because if there wasn't a scheme like that, these young unemployed people were just hanging around with no meaning to life. Some of the YOP schemes that I've seen have been very good in the community work conservation line. I don't necessarily agree with the commercial gain, working in a factory, for cheap labour. I don't agree with that.
Local issues debated by people directly involved in their own programme on their own local BBC station.
You mentioned the quality of life.
Making programmes is more often a solitary job. Charles Guest has left his colleagues at the showground and, with just an hour to go to his daily programme, he's editing one of the interviews he recorded earlier.
We want to buy Ayrshire heifers. We've had 1 or 2 inquiries, both at the Highland and the Royal, and well, that's what it's all about. But apart from that, if you come here to try and make money in show day, you're back in a loser. Back in a loser.
Well, the supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers had backed a loser for once when they were there to welcome the Rovers home from the Rugby League Cup final. And there too were the sports reporters of Radio Humberside, a station which gives full coverage to all its local teams, whether they win or lose.
Now the banners and the flags and the crowd and the mass of the crowd are starting to come along to us. So all the way through this journey now, we've had knots, gathering groups of people, looking out of their windows, waving the red and white banners, scarves and flags. We've seen the usual wit from one side or another.
Another kind of contest covered this time by Radio Leeds, one of the entertainment highlights of the local radio year, where the lighter side of life is never far away.
Which fella are you backing tonight then?
Well, obviously I'm backing Norman.
Norman who?
Norman Jackson.
He's going to win it, is he?
I think so.
It's 7 o'clock and you're in tune with BBC Radio Carlisle. Time for Cumbria Farming.
And another one-man show as Charles Guest goes on the air as producer, reporter, editor and presenter of his daily programme.
Hello again and welcome to the programme at the end of another show day in Cumbria, which, unlike last year's, promised so little and turned out to be, well, if not bright, reasonably dry. So tonight we'll be hearing about the winners as well as a few also-rans, not to mention the also-swam, but more on that later. First, let's take a look at the weather forecast for North Cumbria and the Lakes until 6 o'clock tomorrow evening.
Well, it didn't snow at the Cumberland show, but at other times of the year, a blizzard may bring disasters. And at these times, people automatically turn to their local radio station for a full emergency service.
Radio Manchester keeping you posted on the weather conditions very much in our minds at the moment. We're going over to Derbyshire Police again in a moment for the update there on the Snake Pass. Stay tuned to 206, we'll keep you posted on the blizzard conditions on most commuter routes in and out of the city.
Other times and coverage of more predictable events like local government elections underlines the value of local radio. And nowhere is this task more complicated than in London.
Radio London 206, London's great radio.
I'm Frank Mansfield, and in this election special programme we've got not just the fastest and most accurate results service in town, but also expert commentary from studio guests Peter Hain for Labour, Roland Freeman for the Conservatives, and psephologist Ivor Crewe. If London swings from Tory to Labour tonight, as the polls and the pundits predict, we'll be the first to tell you.
Radio London's outside broadcasters are ready in position at the polling stations, waiting for results as the count goes on.
Now over to one of the key marginal seats in London tonight, Paddington, where Ken Livingstone is, of course, the candidate for Labour. Anne Jones.
Ken Livingstone, would you like to make a prediction about who's going to win tonight?
Labour is definitely going to win tonight, both here in Paddington and in London.
What sort of majority do you think Labour will have?
I honestly just don't know, but it's sufficient to give us a working majority on the GLC for the next 4 years.
On nights like this, the whole network of BBC local radio stations swings into action.
It's Conservative.
In phone calls throughout the evening to the BBC's main newsrooms in London, each station helps build up the national picture.
A Social Democrat gains 1. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Result.
But the flow of information doesn't just go one way, because in return from the national centres, summaries go to each station, completing its service to its own listeners.
This is Lewis Bronze in 3D in London. Here is a piece for your 1 o'clock bulletins. The cue is, here's the latest election picture from across the country from Lewis Bronze in our election unit in London.
Well, where are all these stations? BBC Local Radio started in 1967 and it expanded to cover this area. And now, in an exciting new phase of development, it's bringing the service to over 90% of the population in the next few years. Why BBC and why local? Well, it means you get all the guarantee of quality, all the experience and resources of the best broadcasting organisation in the world, working for you and with you in your own hometown. Community means something when you tune in to your BBC Action Station.
In an emergency, people need to know quickly just what will affect them. BBC Local Radio is equipped to tell them. In 1978, when blizzard struck the southwest, a team from Radio Bristol went to Taunton and set up a special emergency news station.
You're listening to Local Radio in Taunton.
You're tuned to the BBC emergency station, Radio Taunton.
Transmitting on the 224-meter medium wave band and on kilohertz 1340. And we're on the air in Radio Taunton County Hall, giving you information during this emergency in Somerset.
Radio Taunton stayed on the air for just 4 days, but it established the value of this kind of local service. And by the freeze-up of early 1979, it had become routine for the present 20 local radio stations to run similar information services.
Radio Medway emergency alert, can we help you?
And that's the sound you'll be hearing throughout the night from the studios here at BBC Radio Medway as we keep you up to date with news, information and travel, and of course the weather. Any information you want, any news that you want to give us, any reports you want to make, any questions, any queries about the chaos in Mid-Kent due to the weather conditions and the flooding and the high tides, the number to ring is Medway 404422. Will you get your milk tomorrow? Will your house still be afloat tomorrow? These are sort of the questions which we hope we'll be able to help you answer. And just to remind people in the Sheppey area, the public flood information number, for Sheppey is 935 2395.
But it's not all emergencies. BBC Local Radio is in action all the time, and the newsroom is the hub of every station.
This report which has come out on smoking, bashing the cigarettes again. Yeah. So what I want is a vox pop.
Sometimes it's local reactions to a national story. More often, news of local events, people, sport, industry. Each station's bulletins are different because each reflects local priorities. Preparing a bulletin is always a race against the clock. Reporters write up their stories, ready to go on the air live.
The time now is 10 minutes to 1.
Leicester today, this is Ian Dark reporting the local news at...
Each of the BBC's 20 stations broadcasts to its own listeners, but they also send news and reports to the BBC's national networks. And back down the landlines goes news of local importance from the BBC staff working for local radio in London. This includes what your MP is doing for you at Westminster.
Until very recently, the Sutton Centre School in Sutton-in-Ashfield did not offer an O-level syllabus to its pupils. And was this not a grave dereliction of duty? Is not the...
Question time, and a Nottinghamshire MP has asked whether secondary schools are obliged to offer O-levels. Some parents in his constituency were worried because their local school didn't. Radio Nottingham wants a report, so the BBC Local Radio Parliamentary Unit sends along a reporter to record an interview with the MP in his office.
Mr. Smith, what is the situation at Sutton Centre School?
Well, the situation's changed now because there's a new education authority and also, more importantly, I think, a new head teacher. O-levels are now going to be included in the syllabus. But the point that I wanted to establish was whether or not the Education Authority was in breach of the Education Act by not providing O-levels. And it seems that although it's not in the Act, this may well be so.
Local radio has its own team of technicians as well as journalists at Westminster.
Back in on the next question.
The Local Radio Unit is in action whenever Parliament is sitting, meeting the requests of all the BBC stations. These may be for an MP to go on the air live about a local issue, or, as in this case, for a recorded interview which will be relayed to the station and balanced with local views. Local radio keeps you and your MP in touch.
You're listening to BBC Radio Solent, the station broadcasting to the south of England.
Each station is geared to the special needs of its community. For Radio Solent's seagoing listeners, the priority is safety at sea.
Westerly force 5, occasionally gusting to force 6.
For Radio Carlisle's farmers, the latest stock prices.
Averages improved slightly and all were over 60 pence a kilogram.
The lorry has shed its load on the A619 at
Traffic news for listeners to Radio Sheffield.
There's single line traffic only and there will be delays.
But BBC Local Radio doesn't just keep you in touch with information. It's a two-way service.
You'd like to come on the programme, fine.
Could you just give me some very brief idea of what you'd like to talk about?
Tonight's programme will give Manchester parents the chance to discuss with experts problems they're having with teenage children.
Just give me your phone number before you go.
Don't worry if somebody asks you something you don't know the answer to. Be very honest about it and just say, I don't know. If you've got any sort of first idea, say...
Radio Birmingham producer Celia Marks advises 3 Women's Institute members on the best way to tackle questions in a phone-in, because it's not just the professionals who do the broadcasting. The WI team also run their own monthly programme, Not Just Jam. They can use the station's equipment with a bit of advice from the staff, and they're typical of many groups, like Scouts, Guides, Consumers, West Indians and Asians, who have their own programmes on local radio. For many, an exciting first taste of broadcasting.
BBC Radio Birmingham, can I help you?
Time for you to take part in Radio Birmingham's daily phone-in programme, Morning Call. Just dial 021 472 5141.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to the afternoon show with Louis Robinson and 2 intruders, myself, Christopher Slade, and Sarah Pitt as well. We're with you until 4:30, and here are Blue, number 2 in the top 30 on Radio Bristol, and I'm going to capture your heart. Good afternoon.
Gonna take my soul to town. Gonna set my spirit free. Gonna capture your heart.
Especially in summer, local radio goes out to meet its listeners, often at shows like the Bath and West. They broadcast descriptions of the main events, and farmers at home get a service of news and results straight from the showground. These young farmers were competing in a stock judging class. Afterwards, they were asked to describe the points they look for in an interview for a magazine programme.
They've got their own prejudices, their own things they're looking for.
200 miles away in Yorkshire, a different competition. Radio Sheffield's annual series As Bold as Brass for amateur bands. Local radio gives many musicians like these their chance to broadcast, an opportunity which means a lot to the players and their bandmaster.
I think if there is any hole from our point of view, it's actually on the cornets. So this will probably show it up more than the previous thing.
It's interesting that you should say it goes to the husband. Do you think his views are very different on how...
BBC Local Radio helps you help yourself, like these Southampton housewives sorting out their housing problems on Radio Solent. The stations are there to help you make the programmes you want, to help you enjoy being part of your community.
That's very interesting. The kitchen seems to be the big top...
At present, BBC Local Radio covers 70% of England. In addition to the present 20 stations, 2 new ones in Norfolk and Lincolnshire are opening later this year. But we want to extend the network even more, to give other communities the chance to enjoy a piece of the action on their own BBC Local Radio stations.